Should I just go?
Oh, I think you could probably just go.
What's up, profitable stylists? We are coming at you this week with how to maintain hair extensions. Now,
We're
what
coming
is
at you by Aquafina
what?
because no, they did not sponsor this video, but none of you guys have bought me a coffee lately, so I have to drink water. I need you to buy me a coffee.
You've been
Obviously,
reduced to Aquafina.
Aquafina. I mean, I don't usually drink Aquafina. It's probably the cheaper case. Hey, real quick, guys. My son, my 9-year-old, he does karate. We drove God, 7 or 8 hours on Friday. Did a competition in Dallas on Saturday, and then drove back all day on Sunday for him to win second place in two karate things at the district thing. And my mom got these framed. You know, I probably wouldn't get something framed. He won second place in two different things. And the reason he doesn't look so happy right there is because he wanted first place. he said that I really wanted to win. So just like Dad, his mom joking around said it's first place or losing. I mean, I'm saying you're a little rough, Mom.
That is that is motivation. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Place. That's the only winning. There's only winning and losing. There's no
Right.
second place and third place, and he thinks that more than we do actually. But we're pretty proud of him. Second place, there's like 6 other kids in the ring, and he beat them. And there's one little part where the judge comes up to him and said, "When you dropped your weapon, and you have to pick it up properly with respect. You have to get down on one knee, use 2 hands, and because you just grabbed it real quick, we had to deduct an extra point or you'd have won first place." He is going crazy, like, if I had just picked up the weapon correctly. So anyway, guys, y'all are here to talk about hair extension maintenance. And the very first thing I'd like to talk about is shedding. You're going to lose some hair when you have extensions, and hair extension does not make you lose more hair necessarily. I've always said that extensions are like a 3-legged stool, and the thing I like about 3 legs is you need every single one of them for that stool to stay up. If you got 4 legs, 1 leg's broke, it might still stay up a little bit, but with a 3-legged stool, 1 leg's broke, it's going down. And here's the 3 legs that extensions stand on. One is the one everybody wants to blame, the manufacturer. If the manufacturer makes the hair wrong, low quality, well, it doesn't matter how good of a job you do. Bad hair is bad hair, and the client and you are going to have a bad day. The second one is you, Mr. or Mrs. Stylist. If you do a bad job with great hair extensions, it's still bad, and it's a bad experience for everybody, and you might be refunding that money. And then the third one is the client. It doesn't matter how good the hair is and how good you are as a stylist. If that client doesn't do all the things we're getting ready to talk about, then I look like I have a mohawk, huh? It really doesn't. It doesn't matter how good of a job you do or the company does if the client just doesn't take care of their hair. So I just want you to realize that's the things I go through, and you should go through when you are dealing with an extension problem. If a client calls you and said, "I'm having problems with my hair," go through those 3 things real quick. Check yourself. I've screwed up before. I've done some bad jobs, and I had to own them and not get the refund for the hair because I'm like, yeah, I'll push the envelope a little, and I did some new little things to see if they'd work, and it didn't, and it cost me big. Whoops. I learned from it. But sometimes I've gotten some bad hair, and many times I've had some bad clients. And the only way you can know with the clients is do a lot of clients, and then you'll know, like, hey, nobody else is having problems. Must be this client. Probably not the manufacturer if one freaking client is having a problem.
Another thing about shedding is, look, people, I just wrote a whole post about this.
Yeah.
Everybody sheds. You lose
right.
50 to 100 strands of hair a day. And the extensions is no different. It's going to shed as well because it's getting pulled on with your natural hair. It's getting brushed. It's getting washed. It's going through all the environmental stuff. The other thing that we don't think about. I was on a phone call earlier this week, and the stylist was asking me, she says, "Oh, how many times can you get extensions before you have to tell the client they have to take a break?"
Never.
And I'm like, you know what was happening? The stylist was being lazy. They kept, instead of taking the extensions down and putting them back in again, they just kept pushing them up, pushing them up, pushing them up, pushing them up. Now, the way I explain it is, if all four of my fingers are the strands of your hair that you've attached the extension to, right? If one of those four hairs shed, then wait, which finger do I have to bring down? Then another.
Yeah, you just can't leave the middle finger
right.
up.
Then another one sheds. Then another one sheds. Now everything is holding on to that one little strand. Yeah, that's going to snap. You're going to have breakage. And this is why people freak out. And they're like, oh, we have to take a break because the hair sheds too much and the natural hair sheds too much. If you're doing them correctly.
Let me attack that same subject because from a different angle. I talk about it too, but I use a little bit bigger numbers because that's a good visual doing that. I like to get down to the end where you get.
I always end up with the one finger, yeah.
Right, and it makes sense because you are screwed if you do it that way. And right, so every extension technique holds on to a grouping of hairs, and let's say there's 50 hairs in that little grouping that you're holding on to, like you're saying. There's all these hairs, and the average person is shedding 30 to 100 hairs a day. So sure, you might even be above average or below average and you shed 10. Let's say you shed 10 hairs a day. Some of the hairs in that 50 strands are getting shed. And if you're wearing the extensions for 2 or 3 months, you're right. You're losing some of the hairs that weight is holding from. So if you just loosen a bead or whatever it is and slide it up and recrimp, you're not on 50 hairs anymore because some of those hairs have shed, but you're grabbing onto them. So some of those hairs have shed and they've fallen out. They're just kind of like falling off to the side, like little waterfall pieces. And then when you take the extension out properly, you've got a lot more shedding at the time of the removal. And people say, oh my God, look at all the hair I'm losing. I'm losing hair. It must be the extensions. No, the extensions held that extra hair in for a couple of months. And then in between the extensions, your hair was able to shed and fall to the ground. But because we're holding them in, that's also extra weight on the fewer hairs holding in. So that's why you've got to listen to your stylist and get them out at the proper time. If you shed a lot, you probably shouldn't go more than 4 to 6 weeks with extensions in. If you don't shed much, you might be able to go the 2 or 3 or 4 months wearing extensions. It really depends on how thick, how coarse, how strong the roots of your hair is and how many hairs each extension is attached to. There's a lot to think about. And so I wanted to go further with the shedding because hair extensions themselves shed a little bit, some companies and brands more than others, and then clients shed some more than others. And there's no rule. We've got to kind of gauge it as it goes. Listen to your stylist.
Yeah. So and then the last thing I'll say about shedding is, like, for example, I just did a new client last Thursday, the Thursday before. So this is week 2. I just did the follow-up phone call with her, and I'm going to have her come in 2 more weeks. So her first visit is only in 4 weeks. Now we may or may not do anything on that visit, but she's my first time client. It's the first, I have to learn her hair and I have to see how she's handling it. So I'm not pushing her to the regular 6 to 8 weeks. I'm going to have her stop in on 4 weeks. And some people are like, that's way too much coming back and forth. And I have too many clients and I'm too busy. No. This is over $1,000 service. Yeah, I'm going to inconvenience her and myself. And we're going to get together sooner. And then we'll get together later and later and later, depending on what we decide to do.
You should be charging enough to cover that anyway, whether you're charging for that or you put the price in. If you're getting paid fairly for the extension job, then that little follow-up is already kind of covered.
It's built in. Yeah.
Such goodwill.
So that's shedding. Yes. What do you want to do next?
Well, I mean, I like the order that we kind of talked about a minute ago. Why don't you go on your rampage about air drying? And then I can tell you my opinion because it's not 100% the same, but I think we'll still end in the same place.
A lot of people think once they have the extensions put in, I don't care if it's bonds or wefts or tape-ins, I don't care, beaded, whatever the system is. A lot of people think that if they don't touch their hair, everything will magically be fine. And especially if they don't use any heat, zero heat, which means they let their hair completely air dry, everything will magically be fine and it'll magically fall into place and they'll look like one of those, I can't believe it's not butter commercials, you know? So air drying, anytime your hair shaft gets wet, any moisture that's built in, whether you know this or not, your hair inflates like a balloon. It becomes 1.5 to 2 times its natural size. Now, if you have an extension installed, your hair shaft, your natural hair shaft cannot expand because it's got something wrapped around it holding it down. That extension point is literally pinching that side. So now you've got the 2 sides blowing up, the center it's pinched out. You're going to get breakage. It's going to snap or it's going to shed. The other problem is hair extensions, for the most part, at least the ones we're talking about, are natural human hair, which means they have a cuticle. They have an outer layer. So when you let this thing air dry, that's how bad of a rant I'm going on. You left. When you let the hair air dry.
The phones are supposed to be
No, I'm messing with you. The cuticle raises, right? And that's where all the frizz and the flyaways and the static comes from. Now, when the hair dries, the cuticle does not shut down all the way. There's no way it can just shut itself back down. So it's still in an inflated state, which is going to lead to more tangling, more frizz, more dryness. And I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call that somebody says, I think I got a bad batch because the hair is really dry. It's very frizzy. That's my rant. I'm done.
Bad batch. I know. Don't you love that term, bad batch? So many. What, did somebody buy you a coffee? What the heck?
I'm drinking tea.
Okay. All right. So I agree that you brought up some good points there that might actually even change my mind. The thing I want to say about air drying, the main thing, I think, if we're going to like categorize the worst to the best in the air drying, the one that's the worst is when people go to sleep with wet hair. So it kind of goes into the next one.
That's a whole nother different thing.
Yeah, it is. But here's the problem. I'm not 100% against air drying. I mean, I get what you're saying. The cuticle never closes all the way, so the hair is going to be a little rougher. It's going to tangle easier. As long as you're getting through those tangles and you don't mind a little bit bigger hair, and you're going to control the tangles and you don't have a ton of extensions in, you might be able to get away with air drying. The problem with air drying is there's very few climates that all that extra hair from extensions, even if you showered or bathed early in the morning and let it dry all day long, I would be willing to bet that still up underneath here, it's going to still be damp by the evening. So there really is no such thing as air drying, because it's rare that extensions are going to be completely dry before you go to sleep that night, even if you went all day long. And so there's the challenge. The number one problem with wet air drying is the second problem that we're going to cover is don't sleep with wet hair. You're going to end up sleeping with wet hair if you don't dry your hair. So you've got to get that hair dry. And like you're saying, when you add heat and you add some sort of tools to it, you're pushing the cuticle down and smoothing the hair. That's a good argument. I've never really talked about that before. That's a great argument for helping detangle it. But we're also, the next topic we're going to talk about.
Well, wait a minute. For wet hair, going to sleep with wet hair, have you ever seen the movie Gremlins?
Nah, I don't think I have.
What? Somebody buy this guy a coffee so he can stay awake tonight so he can watch them.
Gremlins, huh?
Oh my gosh. Carson would love it. You got to watch it with Carson. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
so,
that's what you look at.
You never feed them after midnight.
Oh, shoot.
You never take them out in the light. And you never get them wet.
That's
3 rules. You want a gremlin? Those are the only 3 rules. So I tell clients, this is the rules for hair extensions.
Gremlin.
They're like the gremlins. Don't take them outside.
Yeah.
Don't get them wet.
Right.
Don't go to bed with the wet hair.
And so these three topics were we were gonna do them separately, but the never air dry, never sleeping with hair wet, and the detangling, they kind of all three
And
go
keep them
together
detangled.
because you can kind of fudge the rules on one or the other if you don't do the other. Like if you don't go to sleep with your hair wet, well, you're forced to dry it because it's never going to dry anyway. So you should never sleep with your hair wet because that is the worst. You've got to detangle your hair at least once a day. And that's good. If you're going to detangle it and dry it, well, then you're not going to sleep with your hair wet. So you're
At a
kind of
minimum once a day. You got to do it as many times as it takes.
Yeah, and that's what I said, at least once a day.
Yeah.
So you got to get through there. And, we have extension brushes that do that. Some people think, I think what you said earlier was really key. It's sort of like balding people, men or women who are balding or going through chemo and they're starting to lose their hair. They do less with their hair. They don't want to touch their head because now with chemo, it is true. You start touching it, it starts falling out, but it's going to fall out anyway.
Well,
It's
that's unfortunate.
that not touching your head is better for your head or your hair. People think if I just don't mess with it, it won't get messed up. But it is. It's moving, the wind's blowing, you're turning your head, it's getting tangled. So you've got to take the tangles out, you've got to wash it, and you've got to brush it. You've got to get through the tangles, whether it's a big wide tooth comb, which is difficult to not get caught on extensions, or one of the boar bristle type brushes we have made for extensions. Even the older fashioned loop brush is not terrible. It rarely gets the tangles out near the scalp like needed, but you can't just expect to brush over the top of your head and get this part of your head detangled either. You've got to part that hair off, pick it up, maybe even a second or a third part, and get the tangles from the very bottom, or turn your head upside down if you need to and brush, but still you're going to miss that interior section. You've got to get the tangles out. At the least, I remember us saying, get your fingers. Even if you just put your fingers near the scalp and get all the way through it, that's a big help. And that might be that second or third or fourth time during the day. Just make sure that you are not letting, because once the tangles start and you've got more hair, you're thinking it's the same as your hair before, but you've got more hair. So you've got more tangles. You've got more hair to hold dampness. So it's going to take longer to dry, more drying time. Tangles lead to what?
Matting.
Yes. And so I don't know why people don't know that, but if you do nothing, how do you I guess people think if I do nothing, nothing will happen.
I have always said, instead of, like to become an adult, you go to high school, you go to college, then you graduate and you become an adult, right?
I don't know if everybody does.
Who knows? But all I know is my rule. I have always said there should be a test to become an adult. You should have to detangle somebody's matted nappy hair. And if you could do that, now you're an adult.
Now you're an adult.
Yeah. If you've ever had to brush out some kids' matted hair or some adults' matted hair, you know what I'm talking about. That's painful.
So this is for you salon owners out there. We had to do a little correction in a meeting. I mean, it was sad because a good thing happened, but a bad thing for the salon. So this hairdresser shows us a picture in the morning meeting, and I'm not in the salon all day, every day during the week. So one of my newer stylists says, look at this before and after picture. And she picks it up in the back and it's like one gigantic mat on the back of her head, almost like sticking out the back of her head. She said, and then she shows me the after and it's beautiful. She goes, look what I did. I said, wow. So that's the good part. Help the person out. Got it all out without cutting it out. And I said, how much did you charge for that? $50. How long did it take? 4 hours. Well, why? She goes, but she tipped me $200 and something. Yeah. Yeah, I know so many things wrong with this. The owners out there can hear what I'm saying. So I said, okay, well, you're a newer stylist. I appreciate the good work you did and what you did, but you basically robbed the salon because we could have had you doing other clients also. I'm so happy you helped that lady out and you did it, but get what you're worth, So the mats can be gotten out is my main point here. And I just thought a few salon owners might like to laugh with me a little bit at the math and the thought process going on there. I won't go into great detail because everybody knows what I'm talking about here. Just be fair to everyone. The salon deserved a little more money for that. So the mats can be gotten out, but it was 4 hours, and that was not extensions. So can you imagine if it was 2 or 3 or 4 times longer? It's not coming out.
That's rough.
Don't let it get matted, and it's going to get matted if you don't keep the tangles out. So that's super important. I think we talked enough about air drying, wet hair detangling. Let's go to what you had next on the list.
Services.
Yeah, services. And I got to say, I didn't always agree with this one, but I'm kind of going your way over the years. Well, do you remember in the early days when when not a lot of people did hair extensions? One of our biggest ways to get extensions was I called the hairdressers in town. Hey, I do hair extensions. I make people's hair longer. And most people couldn't afford or didn't really want to take the time to get the training. It was back in the very early days, like 25 years ago, and when there was like 3 companies selling hair extensions. And the other stylists, I would say, send your extension clients to me that want extensions, and I won't steal them as a regular client. I'll send them back to you for their color, their highlights, their styles. So it was a marketing thing in the early days, but then as you would do their extensions, they got to know, like, and trust you or me or whoever's doing their extensions, and they'd end up having me do the services anyway. And I felt bad stealing the client from other people because if I didn't steal them, they'd send me more extension clients where I made the big money. But the problems came in that you're going to talk about. So go ahead.
And that's some of the things. So, we always said, it's like, oh, if you're going to start doing somebody's hair extensions, then you should provide all of their services, because then you are in complete control. Somebody is getting extensions for a purpose, and it's a very real purpose, whether they need thicker volume, fullness, whether they want length, there's a wedding coming up, there's an event coming, whatever the reason is. So there is a very unique situation going on between you and their hair. You need to maintain the health, the strength, the blending as far as the color goes, the blending as far as the haircut goes. If they've got wavy curly hair or they want wavy curly hair, whatever it is, or smoothing, keratin treatments. There are so many more services nowadays than what, back in the day, you color somebody's hair, you cut their hair, maybe you do a deep conditioning, you call it a day. That, now there's foiling, there's balayaging, there's ombre.
What are you saying? But what's the problem?
The problem is this. If you are the one that does the person's extensions, but that client is going to somebody else for other services, that's okay, so long as that other stylist is aware that they have hair extensions. If the stylist...
I don't know if it's okay. Not just aware. They have to be experienced.
Well, if they have zero experience with hair extensions, they may inadvertently mess up the whole service. Yeah. I've been in a salon where we had shampoo assistants. We didn't have to do our own shampoos. We had a new shampoo helper. She didn't know. And puts the client in the shampoo bowl, starts doing the massage and everything else that she normally does. She's working it for her tip. She's doing her job. Except the client had extensions. It was a disaster.
It's it already. Yeah.
It's so things like that. And it's and I've had it where another one, I was working in a salon where it was departmentalized. So I do the extension. She's got to go to somebody else to get her color, her foils. Well, the stylist didn't know any different, didn't know any better, and tried to foil right through the extensions. What? Yeah.
So
rip the tail comb right in there.
The bottom line is things have changed. There's so many extension clients. A lot of people are doing extensions. If they want extensions, don't worry about stealing the services from the other stylists. You need to take them away from the other stylists, because if a stylist doesn't do extensions, they are probably going to mess up their hair during the foil, during the shampoo, whatever, the blow dry and style. They're going to pull too hard on them. They're not going to be gentle and detangle and dry correctly if they're not experienced with extensions. There's a few stylists out there that don't do them, that are experienced with working around them. It's usually a more experienced in general stylist.
Yeah.
So there's too many brand new stylists that know nothing about them, haven't had the enough bad experiences, and it's a shame that we have to have the bad experience.
And then there's one last problem.
Go ahead.
Drinking. So I can't tell you
What?
how many.
You can't drink with extensions?
I can't tell you how many times I get a phone call and the client says, I started drinking with my girlfriend or my niece or whoever, and we decided to try to do my hair. I'm like, they forgot about the extensions, and then they go trash the extensions job that we just did on them.
Okay, so many people are.
They're
right.
trying to do their hair at home.
Well, and the at-home stuff these days are all the colors. Let's go pink. Let's go purple. Let's go blue. And then, then when they're sober the next morning, like, can you fix this? Make me back right? No, I can't. Well, it's going to start at $1,000, first of all. And we might have to take the extensions out, replace them, because the extensions aren't going to. My own salon coordinator did that. She went all pink not too long ago. She looks at me when I walk in. She goes, I know you hate it. I'm not a big fan of all the fantasy colors, especially at my front desk. I like it to be a little more professional. And she goes, I know you hate it. I said, you pull it off pretty good. But then a couple weeks later, she's hating it. And she wants to go back blonde. And it's not easy to take fantasy color out. You got to be pretty freaking committed to fantasy colors. I get what you're saying. Don't do it while you're drunk. You're not going to stop people from doing that. They're just going to do it anyway. They're not going to. I mean, it's funny because the next topic is follow up, listen to your stylist. They're not going to listen to you when they're drunk. Nobody listens when they're drunk. That's the problem.
It's really amazing how much you tell the client what to do. You send them home with maintenance sheets. You explain them the whole thing. You build out the whole consultation.
Yeah. And
then the client comes back and I'm like, who are you? Are you the same person who left that was all excited? You gotta, the one thing I've learned is patience. You're going to have to repeat the same thing 6,000 million billion times. I don't know. And you're going to have to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over. And it's still not going to matter because they're not going to listen. So they when the client comes in and their hair is messed up because they didn't listen to what you said, you have to find a nice way to revisit. You can't just be like, I told you so.
You want to. Right. Sometimes you do. And you say, never come back to me again. But I agree. I mean, you have to, like you started off with the listen to your stylist to follow up in 4 weeks. We do that with hair replacement also. Come back in 3 weeks and let's take a look. You might not need to come every 3 or 4 weeks, but let me just see what's going on. You know what that check is mostly about? It's not about the company or us. That's the one that we couldn't control of that three-legged stool, the client. We're really looking to see if they're taking care of their hair. If they haven't been doing everything right in 4 weeks, there's a chance we can correct it, salvage it, change it, fuss at them a little. You have got to be detangling this hair, girl. I can see that you have not been detangling it. Have you possibly been going to sleep with your hair wet?
Are you a gremlin?
Yeah.
Okay, here, I just thought of something. Here's a question for you. Do you prefer clients who've been wearing extensions for a long time, or do you prefer new clients who have never worn extensions before and this is their first time experience?
Well, you had said a little while ago, I think it might have been off camera, something about, I hate it when stylists say, at what point do I need to let the customer's hair breathe or take a break or go without extensions? So I would say I like the client who continues to wear extensions because it's more profitable. Sure, I love new clients, but if you're doing a great freaking job, you should be getting so few new clients because you're so freaking booked solid. You barely can fit in new ones, and you raise your prices. You have a little bit of room and you only get 1 or 2 new ones. You fill it up, or 5, and then you do it again. So for me, I love the long-term clients because of the loyalty, the commitment. But let me give you an example. I've got a couple of clients that have been coming to my salon from when I did their extensions over 20 years ago. A couple of them at 15 years, a couple at 20, and one at a little over 25 years now. And I mean, if extensions were damaging, ruining their hair, there's no way they would be going over 20 years wearing extensions consistently that long. So if they're done right with a really good technique and there's no damage and they're taking care of them at home, if I'm doing it right, the hair's in good quality and the client's taking care of them, and she's not the best, the one that's been wearing them the longest, she does come in with a few little tangles and mats. She wears them a little too long in between services, even with that little bit of, I'm not saying she's the perfect client, but she's definitely not our worst client. She's just lets it get a little tangled and matted towards the end. She pushes it and she'll make them last more like the 5 to 6 months. And so in that 4.5 to 6 months, she starts having challenges and problems, enough so that she's like, okay, I got to go get them redone. Right. Well, we should have did it a month and a half ago, but she's trying to save money. She's doing a heated she hair keratin bond, which lasts a little longer. And but then costs her a little more when she does it. So she's trying to save money. And we just keep doing it. There was a time when she come in with such a tangled mess in a few little areas, we had to just cut the hair off this short. And then it just grew right back. And we continued to apply extensions to short hair. Then it grew back and she took better care of it. But it never got pulled out of her hair or went bald or thin where we couldn't ever do extensions again. And now her hair is in pretty good shape. And if we take them all out, it's long, it's healthy, it's not as thick as she likes, or as long as she likes, so she keeps getting them. So if everything's done right, there's a few people with hair that's a little too thin to healthily wear extensions long term. And that's what that first and second maintenance checkup's about. It's like, hey, if you got them out, and I don't know if it'll be cost effective for you, but if you got them in and got them out every 4 or 5 weeks, you could probably wear them. If I put a little more hair in each bond, or a little more hair in the tape sandwich, or a little more hair in the bead, it'll hold, but still there's a couple of sacrifices. It's going to be a little more expensive, a little more often, and a little more hair in each bond or bead or whatever. Then you could wear extensions. But if you're not going to listen to me and follow that stricter program because of your hair, you're going to get damaged, or I'm not going to do your hair because you're getting damaged. Those are the choices you have to make as a stylist. So I like the long-term clients because I love loyalty.
For long-term clients, the only thing what you got to be careful of is that they don't start getting lazy or they don't start getting overly complacent.
So you get rid of your long-term clients. Time's up.
No, well, yeah, right. Could you imagine? That would be insane. No, I was thinking about it because I get a lot of phone calls, which is awesome. I'm not complaining that I get a lot of phone calls. Yeah. I help a lot of stylists out.
Yeah, right.
The trend that I've noticed lately is there's a lot of new techniques out there, and there's a lot of new trends. A trend used to be seasonal, once every 3-4 months. Now there's a trend every other week, or every week there's a new trend coming out, and it's hard for people to keep up. So the client, when I get a phone call and a stylist says to me, hey, I have this client and she's been wearing hair extensions for a long time and she wants me to do them only like this because that's what she saw on TikTok and Instacart or Insta Poop or Instagram or whatever it's called.
Talk.
Yeah, right. TikTok, whatever it is. Social media.
Right.
It's the thing. What drives me crazy is there's so many things coming out constantly because it's a media, it's entertainment. Yeah, there's educational stuff on there as well too, but it's not the end all be all. And that worked for what that audience was or what that person was that made that video. That's what worked for them. That doesn't translate that it's going to work for you or your client or the stylist or whoever specifically you're working on. So sometimes a new client is nice because you don't know what you don't know and you get to fill them in with the information that's specific for them.
I hear you.
So it goes both ways.
Let's talk about sex.
Okay.
So Eddie, before the video started, we were talking about the things you could and couldn't do, and Eddie I'm writing notes over here, and Eddie says and heavy sex. What? Heavy sex? So that, what does that have to do with extent? So Eddie is saying extracurricular activities can be hard on extensions.
Look,
I think it's more than just sex, but I wrote it down. I wrote it down because
my consultation goes like this, Bernard.
What?
My consultation goes like this. I say at the end of the service, I have a follow-up, like a post-service consultation, and it's basically explaining the maintenance And and in part of that post consultation, I say, when you lose hair due to neglecting your hair, letting it wet, air dry, blah, 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 doing crazy exercises, or when you have a happy, fun time at night and you have some heavy sex and your hair gets ripped out, this is what I charge to fix it. Unless it was a really good story, then I'll just fix it for free. And
the stories,
because people, okay, women specifically now are getting hair extensions. One of the many reasons they're getting it for is to make themselves feel better and look better. And if they feel better and they look better, they're more confident. And if they're more confident, they're more attractive. If they're more attractive, then
I knew where you were going with this. Right. I sometimes jokingly in my consultation also will just kind of real seriously say that some of the side effects of getting hair extensions is more sex, more, and they're like, wait, what? I said, but listen. Or when people say, what can I not do with hair extensions? I said, well, no more sex, no more. and they go, take them out. And I mean, it's just a funny way to kind of bring it up because it is one of the things that will be hard on hair extensions.
And that damage is really an interesting version of damage.
Well, it is damage. I mean, it is one of the things that, I mean, it's sad to say, it's a little bit of a taboo situation to talk about. You really can't talk about it in detail. If you're a straight guy talking to a straight woman about it, then you're in a dangerous situation altogether. So that's why we kind of joke about it and bring it up. It's just like, hey, well, I just want to make you aware. This is one of the times that extensions do people are hard on extensions. So just be careful, do what you can. It will cost you. I don't know if it matters that they damage them. That's on them.
Does it matter if they're on fire?
No, that's a funny story. I know. I had a client one time, actually a hairdresser that I met at a show that was, God, she's probably watching this video right now, so no names. But she was giving a story. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but basically sex and fire are in the story. Her hair caught on fire from the candles, and that's a whole nother video of itself. But, I mean, had hair extensions. The hair caught on fire. I don't know if her hair caught on fire and then she needed extensions. I think her hair caught on fire was damaged. She ended up needing extensions. But I would imagine
that's why I say it's an interesting version of damage.
Right. So the sex stories are always hilarious. And often enough, I get asked during the consultation, can these be pulled on? I'm like, what do you mean? And like, well, it's like, oh, okay. I don't know what kind of, do we have a gauge of how many pounds per square inch, how much is
for science? We must find this out for science.
For science, right. So it's a difficult subject, but it is where some damage is done.
How do we even segue to the next topic from this?
We're going to leave it right now. Let's talk about the thing we just skipped. I wrote rinse, rinse, rinse.
Oh my gosh. That's actually a great segue.
Yeah.
So after you've done the dirty deed and now you need to go clean up.
It's not dirty.
Depends what you're doing. So it depends what you're doing. Now, rinsing thoroughly. Look, you sweat.
We're not talking about sex here necessarily.
We're not talking about sex anymore.
We're talking about the ocean, the beach, the chlorine, the hot tub, the pool, all these things, just regular shampoo and conditioner. All of these things should not be left in the hair for long or before you go. So go ahead. You talk about your rinsing situation.
Even humidity, sweating, hot yoga, all of the above. Product, dry shampoos, powders, sprays, perfumes, any buildup of any kind should not be left. You mentioned this earlier. A lot of people don't realize that when they put the extensions in, they end up having 2 to 3 times the amount of extra hair than what they're used to. That does require 2 to 3 times additional rinsing.
That's it. I thought
That's
you
it.
usually
Done.
talk so much more.
You got to rinse your damn hair.
So let's talk about this. So hair is like a sponge when it's dry, and we want you to dry it all the time. So if you're going to go in a pool, or we talked about this when we talked about color and bleach, but let's hit it again while we're here on maintenance. Hair extensions, actually your regular hair. We do so much color and bleach these days, lightener, whatever you want to call it, that we just assume the clients know how to take care of it, and we don't do like we did in the old days. When we first started doing chemicals on people's heads, we were adamant about how to take care of it, how often you should be shampooing and rinsing your hair, how to protect it from the sun, the chlorine, the bleach, and any of the elements that might be in your water if you have well water, or even city water is too much bleach, well water is too many other minerals that can turn weird colors. But the bottom line is, when you're going into a lot of these environments, your dry hair is going to absorb all of the bad stuff much faster than wet hair would. So as often as you can, and it's hard to say because when you're going to take a shower, you have no choice. But if you're going to get in a pool, a hot tub, or the ocean, the beach, there's usually a shower nearby with clear water that doesn't have all those chemicals or salt in it. So if you put that in your hair first, you can imagine it's going to slow down and water down the amount of bad stuff that might go in your hair. So wet your hair first. I mean, if you've got to use a water bottle at the beach to pour over your head and wet your hair, do that. And then when you go in the salt water, most of the clean water is already in your hair, so it'll repel a lot of the salt. Over some time, the salt or the bleach from the pool or the chlorine from the pool is going to get in your hair, but it's a lot less. And if you could use more protectants, like a spray-on UV protectant, a spray-on leave-on conditioner that kind of helps repel some of the other stuff, that's good too. But then when you're done all of these things, any of these things, rinse again at the end. It's just going to help your color stay longer, the health of your hair be better. But I don't think people realize when you get in a pool or have even some home waters, have bleach in the water. You should have one of those filters to take the bleach out of your water at home. But you have bleach in that pool, and you get out of the pool, and then you bake in the sun. The sun on the bleach is heating it up, opening up the cuticle. It's lightening and changing your hair all the time when you're out the pool also. And people don't think about that time. The same thing with relaxers. When a black girl gets a relaxer, or I put relaxers on a lot of white guys too. They got wavy curly hair and will want to flatten it down a little bit. And if you don't get it all out, that's why that bucket of relaxer it just stays on the shelf, and you can keep putting it on people's heads. It doesn't go bad or get old or finish oxidizing like color does and stops working. So you have to rinse. And that's why we wrote it 3 times. You usually can't rinse enough. So make sure you get all of whatever out of the hair. I know you want to
what's
talk.
A profitable service?
What?
That you don't agree with?
What?
Clear. A clear glaze before somebody goes on a trip.
Yeah, let's clear coat you.
It works, man. Glossy. You are so against clear. It works. It's a thing.
Yeah, it repels.
I want comments. I want so many comments explaining to Bernard.
This one.
You don't.
Yeah, y'all can all keep just explain to me how clear does something, but I can't see it because it's clear. So I don't believe it. I don't know.
Why do you put a clear coat over your deck?
Yeah, I can see the difference. The water beads up over the clear. Is the clear color? Is it it's not a coating over your hair like.
Yeah, it is. Why do you put clear on your windshield then before it rains?
Is that really what clear does? Because I didn't think it was supposed to be coating hair. Yeah, all right. Who does clear? Comment below. Why, and does it work? Can you really tell or feel or see a difference?
I want to do a whole next week. We're just going to talk, or one of these weeks, we're just going to talk about clear.
I'll be on vacation again. Rinse. I just want to say, I wrote, we got to end here, but we're going to end on this one word that you said earlier. I actually wrote it down because I want to see if I think we have the caption come on, or RJ types them if they're not there. I want to see what Google translates inadvertently to, because I don't think it's a word.
It's a word. Inadvertently It means when you do something not on purpose, when you're doing by accident.
Okay. I think
What?
yeah, I think we might be. I think you might just be pronouncing it wrong. I think there's an N in there somewhere, huh?
Oh. Look.
And it. All right, you might be right.
We're
gonna find out. RJ's gonna have to type it in. But when you said it, I thought
you were born here. You were raised in America. Yeah. English is your first language.
Right.
How you would know better than I do. Why I have to teach you all this grammar?
I don't know. I don't know the big words. That one just kind of, I didn't really know if we were using it right. Well, you using it right. We'll find out soon enough. It doesn't really matter.
I want more. Just this video is gonna have the most comments ever in the whole history of YouTube altogether.
I think we're gonna be in trouble for not staying on topic. We're gonna have to end it before it gets worse.
Done. All right, guys. Thank you for watching this shenanigans. I guess that's not a word either. Apparently,
it's definitely not. But we're gonna have to retitle this "Two Guys Chat." Two guys go down a rabbit hole.
Thank you for watching.